This is what your life like. Try to live.
Hello, this is Isla. I don't know if we can see her, but she's here. Isla, say hello. I don't really know how to start this story. Let's just go way back. 2015, 2016, I started a blog and I started like doing YouTube videos, and it was just something that I was super into. It was like kind of like a passion project for me. All while I was in college, I started my sophomore year of college, and then 2017, my mom, so summer of 2017, my mom got diagnosed with stage 4 cervical cancer. She actually fell earlier in the year and got a blood clot, and they wanted to test her blood clot and make sure it wasn't cervical cancer again. And that's where they found that her cancer had gone into her lungs. I feel like I'm gonna have to edit this video so much. July, they tell us, July 2017, they kind of just tell us, they sit us down and they're like, hey, this cancer is fast growing. We're giving you like 1 to 2 years to live. It was just a very, very difficult prognosis on my entire family. Particularly my dad. I know my dad just didn't take it well. My brother had gone through a breakup and he decided he was going to move to Salt Lake City a month before my mom was diagnosed and given this prognosis. So it was just a very trying time. I decided I was going to go and keep doing school, staying in Tempe, where ASU is, and I was just going to go through my senior year. It was going to be okay. My mom wanted me to. It was actually closer to her treatments, so everything was good in that realm. My parents lived 3 hours from Tempe, so my mom was coming every 3 weeks at the time to get her cancer treatments. The hardest part about it was just seeing like the physical change. My mom had had cancer once before in 2015, and that cancer was stage 2, and it was like a 70% chance that she would heal and be perfectly fine, and the chemo and radiation that she had gone through wasn't as drastic, so she didn't have the hair loss. She didn't go through all of these like very severe like health problems that you see with advanced chemo. So this one, it was hard. I remember after her first treatment, it started just falling out, and I remember sitting down in the kitchen with my parents, and it was just us 3, and my dad just shaved her head, and that was August of 2017. And just sitting there and watching them go through that, it was just extremely heartbreaking. And I know that for my dad, I think it was like one of the harder things to see him go through, because he was always just the very strong masculine figure for us in our life. And he had like his own health problems. Obviously they didn't tell us he was going to die in a year or anything like that crazy, so we were very much focused on spending time with my mom and making the most out of those times. Yeah, it was hard, and emotionally looking back, I would do therapy. I did everything in a healthy way, I felt, to cope, and I think I might have even done a blog post or 2 about it. And it was just hard to keep up my senior year, my capstone courses, that emotionally, just mentally staying in that realm where I could express creativity, there was just such a hard part for me to blog and me to create content and for me to be what I wanted to be and have what I wanted to have. I just felt too emotional to even attempt to do those things. And then my mom's last chemo treatment was 2017 Halloween. So Halloween 2017. On chemo day, usually how it works is the patient isn't that sick, but they do progressively get sick as the days follow. And it's usually on the second, third, and fourth day where they are at their absolute worst and the pain is the worst, the stomach issues, everything. So my little tiny frail mom, she had lost so much weight, bald, just the most vulnerable I had ever seen her. It was just like so hard to watch. I had stayed with her, and on November 2nd, 2 days after her chemo, she was gonna go home and my dad was supposed to come and pick her up. I had therapy that morning, so I went to my therapy appointment, and I remember my phone ringing, and my phone rang twice and it was on vibrate, and I ignored it. I was towards the end of this therapy session. In particular, I remember painting in that therapy session. I was painting this random picture, and I suck at painting, but it's something that I love to do during therapy while talking about everything. But I'm going through it, I'm painting, whatever, I get done, I get out, and the phone call is from a girl that she was a family friend, and I had grown up with her, but I hadn't really talked to her, and I wasn't that close with her at the time. I still love her dearly. I think she's amazing. Unbeknownst to her, she calls me and she says, hey, like, I'm so sorry to hear about your dad. And at this point, I'm in the waiting room of my therapy office leaving, and I was like, wait, what are you talking about? Like, what happened? And she was basically like, oh, I heard he passed away. And I think I got very hysterical in that moment. My therapist heard me from her room, and she came out and she was like, is everything okay? And I was like, no, my dad just died, like, I don't know what to do. And she was like, okay, like, calm down, I'll drive you home, like, we'll go get through this, it's gonna be okay. And I just remember like a moment of clarity and just saying like, no, it's okay, I can drive home. And I got in my car, and I just remember thinking a million things. And I remember sitting there before driving, and I looked down at my phone and I was like, okay, there is a chance that there's a mix-up and this is not real, like, this is not happening. And I looked down at my phone and I see a text message from my mom, and she said like, come straight home after therapy. And I think that's really when it was confirmed for me that he had died. But we go home and I walk into my aunt's house where my mom was staying, and it was probably the worst like thing to see your mom, who was so sick and who's like told she's gonna die, and just like going up to her. And I just couldn't fathom like why God was like putting her through all of that at one time. And I was like so upset that that would happen to her while you know, if this is gonna be her last like year of life, and now she's gonna lose her husband. And it was just extremely hard for me. But we go home, and I love just going into the desert. And a really fond memory for me was in Christmas of 2016. I was making yourself comfortable. My dad and I drove out into the middle of the desert, and we watched the sunrise together, and I just craved being there. So I really enjoyed that moment with my dad, and I craved being out in the middle of the desert and the cold and just watching the sunrise. And it was November, so we're home at this point, and it was like 5 days. I just sat and cried and really mourned and just like comprehended what was happening. And like, I feel like you have to realize that it wasn't just like my mom or my dad that I lost. Like, I really did think that my mom was dying at the same time. And in the span of 6 months, it was like, oh, both of your parents are gonna die. And that was like tremendously hard. If I've learned anything from this, it's that I'm capable and I'm very like self-reliant. And that everything's gonna be okay. And if it's not okay, it's not the end. My dad had a lot of mental health issues that I don't feel like a lot of people knew about. And I know that he is at peace with who he is and with where he is, wherever he is. And I'm comforted to know that he's like out of pain and out of all of his problems. Come here, sit. You sit? No? This is my life. But that's the comforting part. And everything really happened for a reason. A few months later, I decided I was going to do a pageant because I really wanted to make the most out of the time with my mom, and that was something that we could do together. So I did a pageant and lost one, and then did another one, and the girl that crowned me actually introduced me to my boyfriend now, and I moved across the country for him. And my mom is actually in clinical trials still, and currently her cancer is stable and it hasn't really moved. But one thing that was really amazing is a month to the day that my dad died, the chemo had shrunk all of her tumors to the point where it was, they could not see them on a PET scan. And since then, there has been some growth, but like I said, she's in clinical trials, so she's stable. Just sitting in the doctor's appointment with my mom and hearing the doctor say that they couldn't see the cancer anymore, and my mom was just so brokenhearted that my dad wasn't there for it. But we're just so happy to have her, and we're so happy that she's still here with us. And it's so hard to lose a parent so young, and I would never wish that sort of pain on anyone. But you still have to live your life and get through it all, and life is still so beautiful. And those moments made me realize, like, it's just a very sobering moment when you realize that what has always been there is not there, and it's so comforting to you, and then it's just not there and it's gone, and you can never get that back. That's tremendously hard to comprehend, especially for a young person. And during all of that time after my dad died, I was like, I'm not gonna blog, I basically, for that entire next following year, I had no urge to be creative or have like any sort of outlet and do anything other than what I was doing in like the bare minimum. Which, looking back, I don't know if it was the best thing, but it's what I needed personally to heal. And my heart really goes out to people that have to deal with like tragedy in their lives. But I have gotten this like viewpoint that it's made me who I am today, and I'm very blessed to be who I am today. But thank you for watching, and thank you for checking it out. And if you're going through something like this, just know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and life is still so worth living. Bless you. And you can really still enjoy it, and your loved one, whoever you lost, really wants you to. Bye guys.